Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host here on the Virtual Summit Podcast. I am stoked for today's episode. We're going to be talking about some summit success points, how branding can really make an impact, and some summit failures that you absolutely need to know so you can avoid them. And I am super excited to have legendary Tiffany Neuman with me, CEO of Tiffany Neuman Creative. She's a professor and design degree. I am so excited. She's been also the host of Ignite Your Brand Summit. She is a quick start and a rock star. Tiffany, thank you so much for being here with us.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun on today's episode. Tiffany's a good friend of mine. I've been able to watch her summit journey from essentially start to where she's at and have been thoroughly impressed and am very excited to have her as a guest on this podcast. Now, before we jump into all of the virtual summit aspects of this, Tiffany, why don't you let the audience know just a little bit about yourself and kind of the background?
Sure, absolutely. So like you mentioned, I'm a branding and design professor. I actually was in the corporate world working with brands like Stoli Vodka, FedEx, Burt's Bees for about the last 15, almost 20 years, kind of dating me. But I recently left about 3 years ago to found my own company because I am an entrepreneur at heart. I built a design department within a really large corporation and found myself really managing people and managing like P&Ls rather than doing the creative work that I love so much. And so I just realized that I love helping entrepreneurs with their branding journey. So that's really what I'm all about now. I 100% am devoted to working with amazing entrepreneurs, helping them brand, helping them rebrand their businesses and really get their message out to the world in a really consistent, coherent way and make it look really beautiful.
And doing an amazing job at it as well, might I add. So super excited to get in this. It relates very much with the summit you put on and the outcome or the goal of the summit, which aligned perfectly. So let's jump into that. Why don't you talk about the different summits you've run? Give just a little overview of them. What, how many days? Were they one day, multi-day, kind of your goal of one of them, and then a little bit about it.
Sure, absolutely. So the first one I ran was, again, like I'm a quick start. I ran into you and you've helped me so much along this journey. It was the Visibility Summit. I had to think about it for a second. Visibility Summit. And I am one of Selena Sue's top affiliates. She's also like one of my dear friends and clients. And I wanted a really great way to get brand awareness and to promote for her program, Impacting Millions. So I jumped on the summit, created the Visibility Summit, which I also, of course, tied into what I love, which is branding. So it was very strategic in both ways. And I've been kind of behind the scenes. I'm a fairly new business owner, but I've worked with a lot of amazing entrepreneurs. So it was really a way for me to leap out into the space and kind of get known for what I do, but also align myself with some of my amazing clients and thought leaders, influencers in the entrepreneurial space. And so that was really, really beneficial. My first one, and it did help me become one of her top affiliates, 100%. And then the second one I just did recently was the Ignite Your Brand Summit. So that was obviously more dedicated to the work that I'm doing, shining the light on people. You were actually on the summit. John Lee Dumas was on the summit, Selena Sue, Ron Reich. So a lot of my friends, clients, other thought leaders that I really look up to, talking about the importance of branding. And so for me, again, that was really about brand awareness, getting my name out there as an expert and a leader in the space, and then shining the light on other entrepreneurs that have amazing brands that either I've worked with or that have amazing brands and why branding is so important.
It's time to up-level your summit game and interview like a pro. No one wants to listen to 20 to 30 hours of boring interviews. The summit interview is one of the most important aspects of your summit. And now you can get some free training over at interviewlikeapro.com. That's interviewlikeapro.com. Your audience will thank you and your speakers will love you. Let's commit to no more boring interviews. It's time to interview with impact. Yeah, and so you jumped right in there. You hosted these summits. You started with the first one right away. I mean, I think you went from concept to launch within like 2 months or less or something like that. It was something.
It was like 3 weeks. It was insane.
I wanted to say a month, but I didn't want to be like so far off. I sounded crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was way blown away by what you did, but you managed to pull it all together. And for everybody listening, I would not recommend you try and throw together in 3 weeks a summit. Tiffany,
I second that. I'm a quick start. So when I say I'm going to do things, I do things, but looking back, not the best idea.
Yeah, but you made it happen. You made it pull off. So let's actually look at, you were saying some of the reason or the goal of the summit was for branding and kind of awareness of you in the niche or in the industry. So what kind of happened from that? Like, how did it go? What have you felt or seen kind of the outcome has been?
Yeah, I think the outcome for the first one was really getting seen. People would say, I'm seeing you everywhere. And of course, since I'm a branding expert, I made sure that the design looked really beautiful. So that's really important. And so people were paying attention, and it really grew my email list a ton. Like I said, it helped me become a top affiliate. It really did everything that I had hoped for. And again, because I'm a quick start and I did that, that's why I opted to use the virtual summit software, because I was like, there's no way. I talked to a few VAs who were going to put something together for me, and they're like, it's going to take a few weeks just to set this thing up. So that was super helpful. So like the ease, like, yes, it still took a lot of time, a lot of follow-up, but it really came together nicely and got the results that I was hoping for.
Yeah, I was definitely impressed, and thanks for the shout out to Virtual Summit Software over there. So with that summit, and I think there's two keys here I want to point out for our summit hosts listening in, because a lot of times we focus a lot on lead gen, which you had a great success with that. But I think there's an area that people are missing, or at least they don't give it enough importance. Like, there are some summit hosts out there that run their summit and they don't hit their list goal. But the thing is, by getting your name, your face, your brand out there, it opens up a lot of opportunities. So I'm really glad you made an emphasis of that. So let's look at some takeaways. What's like a big takeaway that you learned, having ran 2 summits within like maybe 4 months, I believe? What are some big takeaways that you've learned now having run 2 summits?
Yeah, so the first one I would say is to be prepared. Jumping into it, you can do it quickly, but I wouldn't recommend it as quickly as I did. So I definitely was more strategic and planned out my second one a little bit with a longer time frame. And really, educating the speakers, spending the time with the speakers. If you get high level speakers, they're going to be busy. So working with their team members to make sure they're prepared. Letting them know your expectations, but not forcing them with expectations. If you want some really amazing people, sometimes you need to be flexible. And that's a part of the planning ahead too, is that I was very grateful that people jumped on and said yes, but you want to plan ahead because, people have their content calendars and their launch schedules programmed a long time ahead. So they may be promoting their own thing. They're not going to not necessarily want to blow up their email list with your stuff at the same time. So they may be willing to, but I would suggest like reaching out to your first few people and seeing like when they have available and planning your summit around those times. Now looking back. So I had a few speakers that I had hoped to get that couldn't, like would want to, but they just couldn't make it fit with their schedules. So that was a really big takeaway. And like you said, with my list goals, like I'm very ambitious. So I had like these massive list goals and I didn't meet them necessarily, but I always do the good, better, best method. And I met I think for the first one, I met the good one. And then the second one I met for the better. So like the third one, I'll probably exceed those expectations, so it's all about growth and learning throughout the process. And I think so often like our mindsets get in the way, or we put ourselves down, and it's like, just do it and don't look back and keep going, and you can always do better. And that's what's really great too, is both of my summits were 5 days and I had 10 speakers. And that was really valuable because it was a short time period. But I'm really excited to try 1-day summits, which you talk about a lot, in the future, and test those out now that I've tried the other way, and really see where the sweet spot is for my audience.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because we normally say when you first get started, start with a 1-day summit and then go to a multi-day summit. You said, screw it, I'm going to jump right in, do the multi-day summit, and then I'll do the 1-day summit. But
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm a little backwards sometimes.
Well, you made it work. You rocked it out. You crushed it. So you said something that I kind of want to jump into for a second. You talked about being prepared to work with some of the speakers or the influencers teams. What's maybe a takeaway or tip or something that you learned having worked with those teams that you could pass on to our other summit hosts? Like, what's the better way of doing it, or what to even expect?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that's the main thing to think about is, these people are busy ahead of time. So when you send out your questionnaire, or, whatever you send for them to fill out in advance, make sure to ask them right away, like, who do you want me to contact? What's your contact? Because if you're bugging them all the time, you may not get an answer, or they may get annoyed. So really working with people's teams is really helpful. Making sure that I hired a VA specifically, honestly, to help, which was really helpful. So she would handle taking the photos, taking that, and doing the communication back and forth. And to treat my customers the way I like to, my clients, it still took a lot on my end, but it was super helpful to have, it didn't cost a lot in the end if you have a really great VA who can work quickly and you just give them the guidelines. But it was really great to have somebody on my team, and then somebody who could discuss with people on their team and answer any questions, and just help in the back end of everything.
Yeah, so I really like that concept as well. A lot of times, and it depends on, you all listening out there, Summit hosts, maybe hiring an extra person is not in the cards right now. But if you can, then it lets you focus on what your zone of genius is, as well as preparing for the interviews, making sure the interviews are great, and really just delivering on that part, which really makes the summit or could break the summit. So not getting so worried about having to create the design, unless you're a designer, or a brander, and worrying about all those little details. So that is a really great tip right there. Any other aspects on the being prepared? What's like 1 or 2 other things that you wish you would have known a little bit more about as far as being prepared before you started hosting your summit?
Yeah, I feel like I took some of your trainings that you have, which was really helpful. So I felt fairly prepared going in, and I just work, with what I have, I'll work with it and make things work. But for me specifically, I wish I would have practiced the interviews a little bit more, perhaps, because, I feel like the more I do interviews, the more I interview other people, the better I get. You know what's expected, you know what to do that. But I have been interviewed, but I hadn't been on the interviewer end as often. And just going with the flow and coming up with questions. And I like to have it be like we're talking now, very organic, not really planned, but just having those bullet points memorized, being a little bit more prepared in that end. So I came off as an amazing interviewer. I think by my second time I was better, but you can always get better, but not overthinking it too much too. Like you don't want to not do it because you're worried about it. So it's like a balance.
It's so true right there. And you did make good reference to the fact that you can get prepared, get trained. I think that's another mistake a lot of summit hosts make, is they're excited and they've got a lot of inspiration and aspiration. And so they jump in, which we have to. I mean, a lot of the things I've done, if I would have known how difficult they were going to be,
Exactly.
I never would have done them, right? So get started. But if you can get training, like we have plenty of free resources for people on how to do a summit, on interviews, things like that. Now let's move a little bit forward, because you've actually been you wear many hats. You've worn the summit hat, but you've also been a summit speaker. And I think that's given, based on our pre-interview chat, some insights into some summit lessons on ways not to do stuff. So let's kind of talk through, the first example. Let's talk through that example where you were on a summit and then there wasn't any follow through. So all of you summit hosts, here's something you need to listen to not to do.
Yeah. So this was really helpful before I hosted my summit to be on one and realize what not to do, like you said. So, not naming names, there's a lot of summits out there, but I was actually interviewed. It went really well. And this is where the speakers weren't educated very well. So I, had a document, I knew what to expect. And that one actually, I didn't get a release date. I didn't know when it was going out. And as far as I know, it never happened. And this person was kind of known for doing summits and didn't follow up. And I actually reverse, you should be leading your speakers and helping them and empowering them. And instead, I was following up like, when is it going live? How does this work? What do I need to do? Where's my swipe files? Like really important to like provide them images and swipe files for messaging and all of these things. Like when are the dates happening? You want to be very clear about that. And so I did not get any of that. And it was really frustrating. I was excited to be on the summit. And then for all I know, it never happened, which is like the kind of the craziest scenario ever. But I was glad to go through it in the end, even though it did waste some of my time, because I was like, okay, obviously I'm not going to do this. And then the second scenario was a little bit better. It definitely, it was a great summit, but I think again, it was like that speaker awareness, being really clear about things, following through, thanking people, promoting people. Everybody is doing a favor for you by being on this. So like promote them, like really shine the light on them. And I think sometimes the summit hosts so often make it all about themselves. And it's really supposed to be like an organic team approach, I guess. I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but it's like, let's rise together. Like it's not all about you necessarily, even if you're talking about your work in the world.
It's time to up-level your summit game and interview like a pro. No one wants to listen to 20 to 30 hours of boring interviews. The summit interview is one of the most important aspects of your summit. And now you can get some free training over at interviewlikeapro.com. That's interviewlikeapro.com. Your audience will thank you and your speakers will love you. Let's commit to no more boring interviews. It's time to interview with impact. Yeah, I like to call it a collaborative marketing strategy. It's not just about you and it's not just about them. It's about all of us working together to bring a bigger good and a bigger goal to everyone, including our audience. Win, win, win. So I'm glad you said that. I always love saying collaborative marketing strategy. So anytime I get the opportunity.
You said that much better than me. I couldn't come up with any words.
Well, since we do have a branding expert with us on here who has run a couple summits, why don't we jump into some branding tips maybe that you could share for our summit hosts who probably don't have that kind of background or knowledge? So what are some things maybe either that you've seen on other summits that are like, or on your summit or for future summits that you're like, here's some things you really should be considering when doing your summit?
Yeah. So I think the main thing, people are visual creatures, like it or not. They, you get an impression within 7 seconds, they say online. Now it's down to like 3. I mean, scrolling, it just takes a second. So, it has to look good. And it doesn't mean you have to go crazy and go all out, but, making sure you have high quality photos from your speakers. If they're low resolution and pixelated, it just makes it look not like people don't want to watch it because it doesn't look high quality. Making it look high quality is really the biggest thing, and getting really clear on your messaging. So what's the story? Like what, from a branding perspective, what are you offering? What are people going to get? Like we said, what's that win-win out of it? So it's a combination of the messaging. Even the title is so important. Like, and it was so funny, like with my Ignite Your Brand, I came up with that. And then JLD ended up being one of my top speakers after the fact, like totally on accident. And I was like, this is perfect because it aligns. So it's just funny how things can happen like that if you really, put your intentions out there and try to be really strategic about it. And then too, just with the platforms, the graphics, just make sure that all of the touch points that people are going to see are consistent. So that's one thing I do, in launches with my clients, whether it's Facebook ads, Instagram, and I didn't run any ads for my summits. I may start doing that in the future. But if you're going to run ads or even just the sharing mechanisms, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, making sure that your speakers are equipped with, amazing photos of like the entire group, of themselves with you. And it seems obvious, but a lot of times people don't take the time to prepare for that. And it does take some time. So making sure everything's just really cohesive, consistent. And then also when they get on the landing page, the follow-up emails, all that stuff, just make sure it's just really cohesive and consistent, and then you'll be good to go.
What's with that actually? What's something you did with your emails, your follow-up emails to make them on point, to keep the branding going?
Yeah, so I did a logo for both of my summits that's based off of my personal logo. So I have like my umbrella brand, Tiffany Neuman Creative. I have sub logos for all my offerings. So then I just developed a logo that was similar for these offerings, so it would be recognizable for brand awareness, and people would see that and it would trigger in their head, oh, it's the same but it's different. It has a different message to it. And then just using my same branded photos, so there's a recognition there. And then in the email itself, I would have a header every time, and then, the welcome videos, whoever was speaking, I would do a daily email and put their headshots in there and their bios in there, just to really shine the light on them again, but also, get people excited about it, get brand awareness for all of the other people, and just make sure it's really consistent. And then on top of that, which I didn't mention earlier, is making sure that all the speakers align with your message, which seems really obvious. If you're going to be talking about an expert topic, you want those people in there. But sometimes people, I feel like somebody's a big name, or they just want to fill seats, they'll kind of take speakers that don't necessarily align. So that's where it is important to take your time and get speakers that really it makes sense to have on your summit.
And that's so true. I know that happens quite a bit. Summit hosts are out there, they're thinking the bigger the name, the better it is for my summit. And that's not always the case. It's better to have less speakers that are more aligned and that are also willing to help support you and promote you. Great comment with that. When it comes to the speaker recruitment strategy, because you were able to get some pretty big names on your summit, what's like one or two things that you would recommend hosts do that helped you get, this kind of mega summit, like as far as the names are concerned?
Yeah, so I guess I'm really blessed because I have amazing clients. And so I asked them to be on with me. And then also just peer groups. I'm in different masterminds that I was able to reach out to. So really just think about your kind of lowest hanging fruit in your community, and maybe they have connections. So you can ask to kind of like, if you don't know some of those big names, maybe you know somebody that does know them, and I wouldn't, you can really do cold contacts, but for bigger names, it's typically, they get requests every day, all day. So I would really suggest to, go up your ladder of contacts. And then too, if you don't have as many, on my first summit, I didn't have as many big names, but then on my second summit, I was able to say, okay, on this first summit, I had this, and this person, this was my results. Now I'd love to invite you onto it. And they know you've had experience. They know that you've done it before. So that's where your strategy of doing the one-day summit is actually really smart that I didn't do, because then it's, it gives you like a ladder to move up to, and you can, get bigger names over time. I don't think a summit's necessarily a one and done thing necessarily. So that's my main suggestion.
Yeah. And I'm really glad you said that, because a lot of summit hosts look at the summit as the end, and the summit's not the end. The summit is really just the beginning. That's the relationship building. And if you can look at it as more than one summit, especially if you're, like doing one-day summits, or if you want to run multiple multi-day summits, the more you can run, and I'm not saying run one every month necessarily, but if you can kind of build these into your marketing campaigns, especially now, since you have things like the virtual summit software to make it easier, they really can play over time, like kind of like a momentum build, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talking about evergreen, everybody's all about evergreen stuff. It's really nice to have that, know that it's sitting there and I can just repurpose it at any time.
Oh yeah. The content, the resell of it. And I want to come back to kind of what you've done post summit. But before you do that, I would like to actually have you break down your summit. Like, how many days was it? How did you run it? Just because everybody does the summit a little different, let's see how you actually ran that.
Yeah, sure. So I had 10 experts in 5 days. So I did 2 experts a day, and they were released. The software just programmed that for me, which was so nice. So I just decided who I wanted on each day. I was very strategic about who I paired up. So, like, for instance, I had an Instagram and a Facebook specialist together, because we're talking about social media on this day. So I kind of, based on the speakers I had, tried to group people together so it made the most sense. And then also I typically start with bigger names just because it gives more momentum and gets people excited. And I chose to have my interviews 20 to 30 minutes because I created a new term that I call consciously consumable content, which I should trademark, by the way. But I really, in this day and age, like, when people, if there's nothing wrong with summits with, like, you see summits with like 50 speakers, that's great. But like, when there's 50 speakers and they're all hour long, it can, in my mind, it gets overwhelming for people. So, the 1 day summit's super targeted. So I felt like this was a good middle ground where it's very targeted. It's got one purpose, one topic, really great expert speakers, like the best of the best that I could possibly get. And then, didn't take it, like, I asked them to give their best value in the shortest amount of time, basically. And yeah, I think it worked really well. Like, like I said, I'm excited to try the 1 day summit, but I think that strategy worked well for me.
It's time to up-level your summit game and interview like a pro. No one wants to listen to 20 to 30 hours of boring interviews. The summit interview is one of the most important aspects of your summit. And now you can get some free training over at interviewlikeapro.com. That's interviewlikeapro.com. Your audience will thank you and your speakers will love you. Let's commit to no more boring interviews. It's time to interview with impact. Yeah, I mean, and you hit it on the head there. I mean, yeah, if you do a summit with 50 speakers, there's nothing wrong with that. It's important to either take into consider the time frame, like Tiffany was just saying, or track out your sessions. Let your audience know that they don't need to consume all 50. They need to pick the ones that are most important to them, or follow certain tracks. So it's always just about thinking about what's in the best interest of your audience. What do they want? What do they need? So as we start to round this episode up, Tiffany, let's kind of shift a little bit to the post summit. So what have you experienced now that the summit's over? Like, what have you been doing? What have you realized you weren't maybe prepared for, or something you were glad you did prepare for in advance, kind of past the summit?
Yeah, so the summit was really helpful, like I said, for brand awareness, really aligning myself with some really amazing thought leaders and influencers, and getting kind of like on their, radar too. So as far as what's been happening afterwards, it really helped me. The main thing, I guess, would be it helped me grow my list. So then people who are following along, there's going to be a small subset, it's all about numbers. So in marketing, so, if you get 600 people signing up, maybe 50% of them are engaging, and then that out of that funnel, like 10% are actually going to need branding. So knowing that, going into that in advance, and knowing that not everybody's going to sign up for your thing, but you're also shining the light on other experts. So, some people might resonate with them and start following them. So it's really a win-win for everybody involved. And then, coming right off the summit, I gave it a little bit of space, and then I went right into promoting my signature program, which was really helpful because there was still a momentum going from the summit. People were like, God, I'm seeing you everywhere, because people were emailing and social media and things. And then, so it was the perfect setup for my signature program that I offer a couple times a year. So I made sure, I didn't want to do it right away, but I left, I think, a week and a half buffer, and then came back out with that and started promoting and doing more work. And that's, I'm actually still launching now, but it's really been working well to get people in my world that I wouldn't have normally.
And that's, you actually had it perfectly the time. We usually say 7 to 10 days is kind of that sweet spot. You want to give, and that's after, for example, if you do like an encore weekend or a bonus day. So that's perfect because you want to let them have time to digest what they were just consuming and maybe finish up anything and just to have a little time to breathe. But then we want to get in and start offering them. They're ready for the customer journey. We move forward with them. Excuse me. So as we wrap this up, why don't you kind of let our audience know where's the best place to get in touch with you? I'd also let everybody know you can find all the links and everything that Tiffany says over at the show notes, podcast.virtualsummits.com/062. But let them know where you're hanging out at. What's the best way to get in touch with you? Maybe they want some help with their branding. And then maybe any kind of final parting piece of wisdom.
All right, absolutely. Thank you. So I hang out mostly on Facebook. I do have an Instagram, but I'm not as active there yet. That's kind of my next goal. I do one thing at a time. So on Facebook, my Facebook group is called Ignite Brand. So I give a lot of free content and tips and tricks and things there. And then I'm happy to connect with people personally too. So you can just look me up, Tiffany Neuman, on Facebook. I'm very personable. So that would be the best place to get a hold of me. TiffanyNeuman.com is my website. I have a really amazing masterclass there. Yeah. So, and I guess the last word of wisdom, I would say, just try to strike a balance. I think if so often our mindsets get in the way and it's easy to procrastinate and say, oh, I'm going to do a summit. And then you do it. It can feel overwhelming and you just don't do it. Right. So, maybe you don't want to go as crazy as me and just do it, but I know myself. And if I don't do it quickly, it won't happen. So, really take the time, plan it out, but take action. I think summits are such an amazing way to get, your word out there, your message out there, brand awareness, and not enough people are taking advantage of it. So I'd also say do it now before people start. You see summits everywhere. You want to get known before the wave comes, is what I like to think of.
Oh man, that is such a good piece of advice right there. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tiffany. It's been an absolute pleasure. I got an entire page of notes written down over here. This has been extremely educational and inspiring. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
It was a rock star episode. Thanks again, Tiffany. And thank you to everybody listening in, all you summit hosts out there. We appreciate you spending time with me and Tiffany. Again, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software, host of the Virtual Summit Podcast. And just remember, your message matters. So go out and make an impact in the world. Be sure to check out the show notes over at podcast.virtualsummits.com/062. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit Podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the Summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.